Welcome to Reroute Reflections, where we share our thoughts and insights about relationships, wellness, and business. We're your hosts, Becca and Andrew. We've been married for 10 years and have plenty of knowledge and experience in our relationship, the wellness industry, and the business world. Grab a coffee and let's chat.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to episode 12.
Wow. Here we go.
In the teens, almost. 13 would be the teens.
That would be the teens. This is the preteens.
The preteens.
The awkward phase.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's actually fitting. So we are recording on Sunday. So we did not do what we said we would do and get all of these episodes ready to go during the week we were off. We decided to just do nothing instead. Well, enjoy
our vacation.
Yeah, honestly, no regrets. I think that was the right call.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Yeah, lovely time. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start. I mean, the weekly recap is really just like us on vacation in Cornwall, and it was great. Wood cabin, a lot of space for Luna to run around in the backyard, a lot of doggy friends. Mm-hmm. She did get loose one night.
Well, it was right before a big storm was about to hit. Like, we were in the hot tub, and then we noticed the clouds getting really dark, and the wind was picking up, and we were like, oh, we should probably go inside.
Yeah.
And then she got free, and she was running around, and the wind was just, like, whipping, and we were like, oh, my God.
Yeah, she was... Because every single backyard in this, like, subdivision doesn't have a fence.
Right. It's all open with each other.
So she just was like, it looked like a park out there. And so she just was enjoying every little bit of it. She ran through gardens, ran through flower beds. Luckily, Jinx. Luckily, what were you going to say, actually? Now I'm curious.
I was going to say, luckily, the neighbor
I was going to say that, too.
I think they heard us yelling, like, Luna!
Yeah, I was getting so mad.
They had a little dog, and as soon as Luna saw the dog, she was like, ooh, a new friend. So
yeah.
she, like, went right to the neighbor's house.
I don't think we would have been able to catch her if it wasn't for the neighbor, because Luna's just notoriously likes other people, or is more interested in other people than us, I think, when it comes to, like, her zoomies, right? Like, she just, once she gets them, the only thing that will stop her is, like, new people that may show her affection. Mm-hmm. And luckily he came out, and Luna was just running around him for a bit, and that allowed us to kind of grab her.
And then as soon as we got her inside and we were all packed up inside, it was pouring rain.
It was
like, it literally could not have been more perfect timing. Like,
yeah, and then you had little pebble-sized hail started coming down. But yeah, aside from that, very hectic, very annoying incident, I guess we'll call it. I think she was doing really good the entire time. I think she really enjoyed it. She was just outside most of the time, which was great.
We need to get a backyard now for her.
I know. Yeah, for those who don't know, we live in a condo, which makes the pet situation always just more interesting, I find. But we do have a decent sized space outside. Obviously, we don't have the field or like a backyard, a decent sized backyard. Yeah, like our previous house in Guelph would have been perfect for Luna.
Sure.
Yeah, it was a beautiful like sized backyard. But yeah, it's funny because I feel like even when we were like leaving and people were like, oh, like, you know, how was your trip? And obviously they want to share pictures and stuff, but most of our pictures, if not all of them, were of Luna.
Yeah.
I don't think we have one of us. Yeah.
We don't have one of us like together.
Yeah. It's just us, one of us with Luna.
Yeah.
Is if we were lucky that one of us is in the picture.
Yeah, we need to be better at that.
It's too funny.
But
how about you? How did you find the week?
It was great. I just definitely feeling a lot more relaxed this week. I think I'm definitely ready to go back to work. I miss my patients, you know. I'm like curious how a lot of them are doing. Some of the patients I've been following for a long time, and I'm excited to go back and get caught up with what's been happening over the last week and a bit. And
that's great to hear.
Yeah, I think that kind of leads into one of today's topics, though, because I think going back to work, now that I don't have to study, I really want to focus on some like key health habits to make sure I don't get burned out again so quickly. And I think it will help that I'm not studying, but at the same time, I don't want to just keep doing what I'm doing. And
are you feeling better? Are you feeling like you're not burnt out anymore after that week, or?
Yeah, I think so. We'll see once I have a whole full day of work again, right? 'Cause
I mean, just the fact that you feel motivated to go back, I feel is indication, right?
Yeah, I think so too.
That's great.
But I think the last few weeks I was focusing more on eating like better, making sure I'm actually eating like a breakfast and a lunch every day. So I want to keep up with that. But one of the things which we're going to talk about today is sleep quality, because I think that's something that I really want to refocus on going into this week
Mhm.
and moving
Yeah,
forward.
it's a really important topic.
Yeah, I think more and more people are coming to understand how important it is for their overall health. I see a lot of TikToks now and things on social media about people making like sleepy girl mocktails and trying to focus on getting better quality sleep. A lot of people are taking like melatonin now to help with their sleep quality,
Hmm.
but I think a lot of us haven't really taken it super seriously
Hmm.
in the past. Whenever you think about working on your health, most people are like diet and exercise, like physical health,
Definitely.
but they
Definitely.
they don't often consider sleep to be one of those like key pillars.
Yeah, it's always an interesting one, sleep. It's if you feel like you don't have control over it. At least in
Yeah.
my view, I feel like I don't have control over like what happens once I close my eyes, and I think that might be why it's so difficult for people to feel like they can establish a routine to try and make their sleep habits better or what have you, just because I don't know, at least for me, I think oh, like you just go to bed and fall asleep and you don't really have control over what's going to happen in those like 8 hours.
Right.
So like you just hope for the best.
Yeah.
So that might be why, at least for me, that's why I've never really actively tried to do anything about it.
Yeah, it was interesting though, because I did see on social media today a post about a guy talking about sleep, and he made a good point in just saying that we're the only like animals who disrupt our own sleep cycle. Mainly it means like setting an
An
alarm
alarm
to
clock,
get
yeah.
up and go to work and stuff. Like we're the only ones who like,
It's a terrible idea. Let's stop doing that.
let's stop setting alarms. Let's just not go to work anymore. Yeah, ideally, right? But
Honestly.
I think if you were to, and I think you're a pretty good example of it. Like if you have
Hmm.
a good, like a set routine and you wake up around the same time every day, like
Hmm.
even on weekends, you still wake up at 7:30, 8 o'clock.
That is the one thing that I actively do. And even if you were like this week when we were off on vacation, like I was getting up. We'd go to bed a little bit later, but I would always try to get up at what was it,
I think usually like
7:30?
8. Yeah,
Yeah,
7:38.
a lot of it was Luna wake me up, but other
Because
than
she's
that,
probably used to your sleep
yeah,
routine.
exactly. And I liked doing that because it just I feel like there's nothing worse than, especially after vacation, you come back and your sleep pattern is all off because you've been sleeping until 10 a.m. or something, and
Oh,
then
you're calling me out right now.
oh, wow. It was up to you to bring that up if you wanted to, but like, and that's individuals have their own thing. Like for me, that would be terrible. Like
Right.
when I see you like sleeping in that much, I'm like, I don't know how you're gonna not only wake up at 7:30 because you have to wake up at 5. I'm
I
like,
know.
but I think it was obviously that's probably something that is not ideal, but I think given how much like sleep deprivation you've had over the last several months, I think it was like necessary for you to catch up on it. So maybe it will be tougher this week getting back to it, but I do think you sleeping in as much as you did last week was probably a good thing.
Yeah, and I think that's why I wanted to reset and refocus on it this week.
Hmm.
And I think we're going to talk about some top tips to improve sleep quality towards the end of our chat today. But I know for me, one of them is going to be like going to bed on time and
Hmm.
having a more relaxing kind of like bedtime routine to get me ready to go to sleep, because
Yeah.
I think that's where I can help myself like get ahead of it, because I know for a fact like I need to wake up at 5:36 a.m. every day.
Hmm.
So if I count backwards for like the 8 hours or whatever, like I need to make sure I'm in bed and I'm sleeping by a certain amount of time.
I think we'll also talk about this idea of us as a couple and how what one person needs is not necessarily aligned with what the other person needs. And how do you juggle that? And I think that's also a really big issue when it comes to trying to proactively manage your sleep,
Yep.
is especially if you're in a couple, it's not just you that you have to worry about. You also have to worry about your partner. And for us, the key ones I think is going to sleep at the same
Similar
similar
time.
time. That's difficult because I like to stay up a little bit later.
Yeah.
And then the other piece is around like background noise,
Yeah.
and having the TV on. So I need background noise to fall asleep, whereas
Don't like
you
it.
don't like it at all.
No.
And it's because I grew up with having background noise. Like I had a TV in my room, and I always liked to, for me, my thoughts were just like constant. You know, I could
Yeah.
never slow them down. And so falling asleep was really difficult for me at a young age. And so when I would have the TV on, it would just
Help
allow me to
calm your
focus
mind.
on whatever the narration is.
Yeah.
And then that would put my mind at ease enough to fall asleep, right?
Yeah.
But there are ways that I can still accomplish that without impacting you negatively. It's just trying to find that compromise. So we'll talk a bit about that too.
Yeah. Why don't we start with a few stats about sleep?
So most health organizations recommend about 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night on average. Women tend to sleep a little bit longer than men. That's very true in our relationship.
Yes.
However, men reported better sleep quality overall.
Yeah,
So,
which
you
was
know,
interesting.
yeah, 77% of adults are meeting the sleep recommendations.
Which isn't bad. I'm like surprised that three
Yeah.
quarters, and this is Canadian statistics from like Health Canada,
Yeah. It's funny, I had a totally different perception of that. I was like, wow, a quarter of people are
not sleeping.
not sleeping or not meeting the sleep recommendations. Only 55% of adults over 65 are meeting sleep recommendations. That makes sense. I remember when I was in Canadian Tire,
Yeah.
which is, I don't know, it's like if you're in the US, it's just a place that literally has everything, including
It's like a
tires.
Walmart, but like more
Yeah, it's like a
home
Walmart,
hardware-y
but-
or whatever.
but cooler.
Rona.
Yeah, it's just more fun to be in there. But I remember being in Canadian Tire, and it didn't matter what time of the week or what day of the week it was. Like, old people were always first in line before we opened.
Yep.
So they're just like waking up at 5 a.m. all the time. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Sleep quality refers to efficiency in going to sleep and staying asleep. So if we talk about sleep quality, which we will when we talk about our stats, that's referring to being able to go to sleep, like actually fall asleep,
Like how long it takes. Yeah.
how long it takes to do that, and actually staying asleep. So having consistent sleep throughout the
Right.
night and not waking up. So in terms of like our stats, which I was surprised by, and to be honest, my stats are a little bit dated, but still within the last 6 months, so still pretty good. 8 hours, 43 minutes on average is the amount that I sleep. And that was over a 6 month period. And 95% of the time, I'm meeting that sleep duration of a sleep duration goal that I had set, which was 8 hours. So like in the middle of the 7 to 9 hours that's recommended. So most of the time I'm getting there, and there's very few disturbances during the sleep. When I'm asleep, I'm asleep.
You sleep like a log. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only time I've ever woken up during the sleep was when you screamed, like during your pregnancy loss.
Right. Right.
That was the only time that I woke up. And Luna looking my face, I think, was the second time.
Yeah. She's pretty good at waking you up out of a dead sleep. Yeah.
So that pretty good actually. I've never looked at them. It's all on one of my smartwatches. So when I just stopped wearing it over the last 6 months.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't have any data on sleep recently. But I've never actually looked at it. So it was good to see that I'm actually, and I don't think my sleep patterns have changed all that much, over the last 6 months anyway.
Yeah. I use an app called Sleep Cycle. So I usually have it on most nights. I like it. It tracks your sleep quality, how long you're in bed, how long you're actually asleep. It has the option before you go to bed to add in any notes. So, for example, if I was using like a diffuser before bed or listening to a sleep story or music, or if the TV was on, I would add those in my notes so you can actually see how those different factors are affecting your sleep quality, which is really interesting.
I like that.
It is an app that you have to pay for. I think I have some kind of like medium version, but the premium one is like pretty expensive, so I don't pay for that one. But I think the one I have was like grandfathered or something, which is why I'm like lucky to have it. For me, over the last 6 months, I had an average of about 8.5 hours in bed. However, I am only asleep for about 7 and a little bit of those hours. So there's probably a good like hour and a half where I'm not sleeping, either trying to fall asleep or waking up in the night, things like that. But the app did note that my sleep quality was 83%, which is above like international averages, because you can see that in the app as well, which was pretty neat.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so not too bad, but I think even me reflecting back on just like my mental health journey, I think when I was going through PTSD, my sleep quality and my time of sleep was definitely like way worse because I was having a lot of nightmares and I like didn't want to go to sleep and things like that too. So I think it's improving, and I think it can only go up from here.
Yeah, that idea of being like fearful of going to sleep, I definitely can resonate with that for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Okay, so why is sleep so important? There's a ton of, and I think a lot of people already know a lot of these things, but we're going to spell them out anyway because I think they're really important. Some of them shocked me, to be perfectly honest. First one is just around your memory consolidation. So research does show that sleep, particularly REM sleep, plays a critical role in memory consolidation, helping to strengthen and stabilize memories formed during the day. So almost like a filing cabinet.
Yeah.
Sort of. That's cool, actually.
And that's why, like, I'm someone who's never pulled an all-nighter,
Mm-hmm.
like, before an exam or whatever, because I've heard this before. And part of the importance of actually getting a good night's sleep before an exam isn't just so you'll be more awake and refreshed, but so, like, everything you've been studying for the weeks before will actually get put away in your little filing cabinet of memories. So you can actually, like, recall it better
Access
the
it,
next
yeah.
day. So,
Yeah. It makes sense, right? If you think of, I've never really thought of it that way, but it makes a lot of sense because you need that time for those associations to be wired in the brain and so that you can actually recall them more effectively.
Yeah.
I have done an all-nighter before. It didn't work out very well.
so a little bit extra proof there. It's important to sleep.
Yeah, and it was also the most ridiculous experience or the most awkward experience. It just if you've done an all-nighter before, seeing it going dark and then it becoming like bright again and then
So
not
depressing.
having slept
Yeah.
at all is just it's a very I encourage everyone to do it because I think you can't just do it just to see what it's like, but it is eerie. It's not really, I don't know how to describe it, but I will say I'm glad I did it, but I will never do it again.
I feel like the only time I've experienced that is when we're traveling.
Yeah.
Especially
Right.
the times that I've gone like to England or something to visit family where you might be boarding like a really late night flight. And I don't really sleep well on planes. I might get half an hour here and there, like maybe, but I definitely don't sleep well. And so you're like flying all night, you see it really dark, and then by the time you land in the morning, because they're 5 hours ahead, it's like bright outside and it's 10 a.m. and you're like, oh man, I have the whole day to go still. And you get like a little like crazy almost.
Yeah.
You're just like, I don't know what time it is. My body's confused. Like I'm exhausted, but also it's the middle of the day. So
Yeah.
I need to push through to make it to tonight to try and get my sleep schedule back on track. But yeah, it's definitely a weird feeling to go through all the night, like not sleeping.
Yeah, and I do remember reading that. Like at the end of the day, the body is quite resilient when it comes to just anything in particular, right? Like I don't know the actual number, but you don't have to drink water every day. You don't have to eat every day. You can go days, probably weeks without eating.
I think you can survive only 3 days without water.
Right.
Whereas I think it's 3 weeks without food, maybe 3 months.
And
It's something that's like drastically longer than water, which is surprising.
I wonder how how long you can go without sleep. What's interesting though is that the brain will actually shut you off, which is terrifying to think about, but it'll literally force you to sleep.
Yeah.
If you've ever played The Sims, you know exactly what we're talking about.
They just fall over with their butt in the air, just passed out on the ground.
Yeah, just like your body's like, you know what, if you're not going to sleep, I'm going to make you sleep.
Yeah.
So and it's probably not going to be in a really flattering situation. It's going to be in like a very awkward situation. Just think about all the times your camera's frozen on Teams, you know? It's
always the worst.
never in the right spot. Sleep is important.
I listen to a lot of true crime or like paranormal podcasts. And I do remember listening to one about a bunch of like sleep studies that they did, like way back in the day when they were doing things that would like definitely not be allowed today. And some like really like spooky, weird stuff would happen with depriving people of sleep for so long. And I can't remember all the details, but I remember it was like really creepy. Just like how very slowly people would lose their minds, like how their behavior changes, their personality changes if you're forced to stay awake for so long. It was really like, it was creepy to listen to.
That's fascinating. Like, it's too bad like psychological studies have gotten all these like ethics and stuff nowadays, right? Like you can't actually like test any of this stuff out. Maybe they have. If you know that they have, I would love to know what article was posted probably back in like the 40s and 50s when all the cool studies were allowed to be done. The ones that really scar people, those are the ones that are really interesting. Okay, as we do, we went on a little bit of a tangent. So back to the benefits. So we started talking about memory consolidations, the whole filing cabinet system. It like categorizes everything that's happened in your day to make the associations stronger moving forward for those memories. Mental health is also a huge benefit. So quality of sleep is actually linked to better mental health outcomes, studies show, which is great. And poor sleep is associated with an increased risk of mental health disorders such as depression and anxiety. So very important for us. Those are the two that we have struggled with for years.
Well, and if you think about the stories you were just talking about,
yeah,
too,
that
like
too,
those people for sure had really bad mental health outcomes because of like being deprived of sleep. So
100%. Yeah, exactly. I think that's okay. So as we were going, I was trying to find the details around like how long you can actually go without sleep. It does say here that you'll experience side effects of sleep deprivation within the first 24 hours. So it doesn't take very long. So that's quicker than water.
Well, they say if you don't get enough sleep, it's like the equivalent of being drunk and driving, isn't it? I've heard that before. If you don't sleep for a day or two, it's the equivalent of driving drunk. Like, it's not recommended.
Oh my god, that's exactly what it says right here.
Yeah, it can be really dangerous.
Yeah, it's like reduced reaction time, slurred speech, diminished memory and attention. Makes sense. You didn't get to categorize. Yeah. Irritability, interesting. Impaired vision, hearing, and like you said, hand-eye coordination, tremors and muscle tension, and then impaired judgment and decision making. Whoop, damn. Gets even worse if it gets to 38 hours, or 36 hours, 48 hours. I'll link it in the description for today's podcast just so that you guys get a chance to see it. But very cool stuff from the Cleveland Clinic. Thank you very much for being readily accessible when I did not do my research ahead of this.
Well, yeah. Apart from mental health, there's also physical health that I think most people are usually the most concerned about. The first benefit with good quality sleep is improved immune function, making the body more resilient and fighting off infections and illnesses. There's studies that indicate people who don't get enough sleep are more susceptible to common colds or other things like that. And I think personally as well, if I know I've been working like really hard and I'm burned out and I've been running on both ends of the candle or whatever they say, I feel like I get to a point where once everything's over, it's like a big sigh of relief. And then I almost always will get sick after that. I think because like my body's just been like so like burning so much and I haven't been giving it what it needs, oftentimes probably in sleep, that my immune function suffers. And I think it happens to a lot of people too. They finally get to relax and they're like, oh no, I got sick.
It happens to me constantly. It used to anyway, like when I had exams and stuff and they would always be before Christmas. And I would feel fine, and then as soon as like the exams were over, I would constantly get sick because your body feels like it's okay.
I can finally relax.
I can relax. And then there comes the attack.
Yeah.
Just always.
Apart from immune function, good sleep is also vital for heart health. Chronic sleep deprivation has been linked to increased risk for heart disease, high blood pressure, and stroke. So you definitely want to, keep your heart healthy with good exercise, nutrition, and good quality sleep. I think again, for me, I think about it, if your body's constantly like running, like not physically, but with being busy and all that stuff, I feel like my body gets stressed out. So it only makes sense like your heart would get stressed out from this too. And you need that time overnight to like rest and reset and let your whole body calm down, kind of reset your nervous system.
Yeah. It's like exactly. Like think of how much, here's the thing. Having done a lot of like biology in school, I think the one thing, and I didn't do very well, but but what I gathered from like all these things is just how complex and intricate the body is, like at a cellular level. There's so much happening to get us to be able to walk or talk and see and all of these things that we all take for granted. It's important to give it that ability to shut down and recharge to get you going again for the next day.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
And I also find it entertaining when people think that they have more control over their body than they really do. You see online a lot people promoting ways to detox your body, for example, and the alkaline diet trends where you're introducing only alkaline foods into your body. And I just find it funny because your body's so much smarter than that. Like your body is already constantly trying to detox things from your blood, from your breath, from everything with like your liver and your kidneys. And even with your stomach is so acidic that no matter what you're going to introduce into it, like it's going to balance it to your body's pH level. And I don't think many people know, but especially with working in an ICU, we're constantly measuring people's pH level because it needs to be so tightly regulated. The limit or the range for a normal pH is between 7.35 and 7.45. Like,
Wow.
it's like a zero point 0.1 range that's acceptable. And if it falls even a little bit out of that range, like your whole body goes haywire. Like things can go so wrong so quickly if your pH in your body is not that well controlled. For people to think that they should be trying to make their body more alkaline or more acidic, I'm like, no, you don't want to mess with that. And you also can't. Like, you think that food or what you're drinking is going to impact it. Like, your body's regulating things so much more tightly than you realize.
Yeah,
It's a lot smarter than you give it credit for.
as you were talking about it, it reminds me of what my brother-in-law is had experienced. So he is incredibly meticulous when it comes to anything of interest to him, whether it's sports or whatever. But when he gets into something, he researches it so thoroughly. He becomes such an expert in it. And this story is just around when he got into building tanks. So like reefs and like
like aquariums.
aquariums. Yeah,
I was
thank you.
like, tank? Like war tanks?
Yeah, war
Oh.
tanks.
Like, what?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And so aquariums. And so
Yes.
with the design or with the goal of having it become self-sufficient. So he'll introduce like living organisms like crabs, shrimp, reefs that will expel waste that the animals that are introduced in the system will use as food, and then their waste then is used for food for the other organisms within the system, so that you don't necessarily need to feed it, but can
Right.
become self-sustaining. And I think this is a perfect example or analogy of the how the human body, it needs to be managed. So he initially was like, okay, I'm going to measure everything. I'm going to measure the pH all the time. I'm going to do all of these different pieces. I'm going to actively be as active as possible to get it to that state where it can be at equilibrium.
Yeah,
right?
there's a bunch of little like chemicals and things you can add
Yeah,
in to try and balance
monitoring
it all
it
out.
all the time. And he had it running for several months, and then all of a sudden, like that, it just
Gone.
dead. Everything
Yeah.
started dying. And so at the end of the day, long story, short there, it realized that with all of the intricate, like being so proactive and intricate measuring and touching and affecting everything that was happening organically, ended up destroying the ecosystem. About several months after that, he decided to try it again. But this time, he just let it be. Very minimal input from
Yeah.
him. He tried to let the ecosystem manage and self-regulate itself. And what do you know? It's thriving now.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what I imagine the human body needs. Is stop trying to mess with it. It's only going to make things worse. Just
Right.
let it do its thing. You know?
Yeah, I think within reasonable control, like you should be taking care of yourself and doing what's within your power to try and provide your body with kind of like the best environment, but to try and, like you said, like meticulously try and change this and that, it's
Yeah.
really in the big picture, it's not going to really impact anything as much
Yeah.
as you think it will.
That's the way I see it anyway. And I think it's such a much better reality to think about. Instead of having to like be so meticulous at it, it's just, yeah, build the environment up like he did around making sure he introduced the right species into the plant, into the aquarium, so that, they could actually be symbiotic with one another. Like all of these things were external factors that he introduced himself.
Right.
And that's same concept for us. Get the right sleep, make sure that you're getting that physical, make sure that you're working out frequently and getting the exercise in. And all of these different things are all pieces that help you establish like an external environment that will help you thrive. And then it's just let the body do its magic,
thing, yeah.
Yeah. That's the way I see it anyway.
I think that's the biggest thing I've learned through all my years of education now to become a dietitian as well is nutrition is not like, it's complicated, but it's also not. There's a lot of science behind it. We've done tons of research with nutrition to really understand the physiology and the science of how nutrients interact with the body and all of this. But at the end of the day, if you step back and you look at the big pictures, you need to just eat a balanced, healthy, diet. Your lifestyle needs to revolve around just incorporating a lot of like plant foods, like having good sources of protein, making sure you're getting healthy grains every day, choosing to have water more often than any other drink. Like, that truly is the basics of it. And yes, there's a whole bunch of diets you could try out there, but at the end of the day, that's you just trying to fine tune to say, maybe this works better with my individual body. And maybe that's true, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. At the end of the day, like, you just need to be overall balanced plate.
Yep.
And it's sounds easy, but obviously I think everybody knows it's not that easy to just implement in your real life. I think on that note as well, one of the last physical health benefits I'll tie in here is about metabolism and weight control. Poor sleep can disrupt the regulation of a lot of hormones in our body. So things like growth hormone, melatonin, which helps with sleep, cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and then things like leptin or ghrelin, those are hunger hormones. These are all really tightly correlated with our circadian rhythm and our sleep cycle, and they affect a lot of the metabolism that happens in our body. So when we're disrupting those kind of things, then it can lead to increased appetite. Maybe you're reaching more for those higher sugar foods because you're so tired, your body needs energy, and therefore can lead to weight gain, things like that too. I know that's one that I don't think enough people focus on if they are looking to lose weight or help improve their metabolism in some way. They're always so focused on like the nutrition and the exercise, but I think something people are often missing is like that good quality sleep. And I emphasize like the good quality part, because yes, you, like me, you can go to bed for 8.5 hours, but if you're only truly sleeping for 7 hours of it, which is on the lower range of that sleep recommendation, are you really getting like the quality sleep that your body needs to rest overnight, put away your memories, like let the rest of your system relax and reset, make your hormones happen, like all that stuff is happening overnight.
And on that point, this idea of like physical health benefits is always something that's really important. I feel like everyone is always so focused on the physical, because I think it's something that's visible. You can see it, right?
And everyone else can see it too.
Yeah, I would argue that mental is as important, if not more important, because I just see it as like a precursor to everything. You have strong mental health, and that will show itself in physical form and that kind of stuff. But if we're all focused on physical, think about the physical performance benefits associated with sleeping. So if you're somebody who goes to the gym all the time, you're not going to get those gains unless you're sleeping properly.
Yeah.
Like, that's really key. And athletes have actually shown that if for those who actually get sufficient sleep, have actually been shown to perform better. You know, in that part.
And even if you're not an athlete, if you are someone who's trying to take your exercise routine more seriously and focus on all those external things as well, if you're not getting quality sleep to begin with, then whatever you're trying to do in the gym is probably not going to get like the best results that you could be getting if you had better sleep quality.
Yeah.
If you have better sleep quality, you're going to be able to hit the gym harder, increase your weight that you're lifting, or increase how long you're able to run on the treadmill, like whatever it is.
And you probably won't fall off the treadmill if you've had enough sleep.
Yeah, your coordination will improve.
Yeah, and that is also another piece around just like overall motor function, which we talked about. And last but not least, this idea of you could die sooner. No.
Yeah, but
just to end it, but it's true. Yeah, it's apparently true. Like, chronic sleep deprivation is associated with a shorter lifespan. So not great. So there are safety benefits, there's performance benefits, there's physical health benefits, there's mental health benefits, there's so many benefits. So how do we, I mean, honestly, all I'm thinking about right now is just going to sleep, because I'm petrified of not getting enough sleep tonight. But before we do that, let's talk about some of the sleep tips that I guess we have. So why don't you start? Because I know you've been very active in this over the last couple of months.
Yeah, so the first one that I mentioned in the introduction was having a consistent sleep schedule. I think this is one that I definitely want to focus on. And like we said, trying to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on weekends, because if you're going to throw it all off on the weekend, then you're not consistent, or you're not creating that consistency to really get the full benefit of it. Having a really consistent sleep schedule can help regulate your body's internal clock and just improve that quality of sleep over time. So even like with our own statistics that we were talking about, like, you're getting 8.5 whatever hours, and my assumption, because we don't have the data, is that you're probably getting good quality sleep, because when you go to sleep, you're not waking up. You have very little disturbances.
Yeah.
You're getting that quality, and you're waking up at the same time every day.
Yeah.
So I think it's that consistent schedule that's helping give you that quality sleep,
Yeah.
which is what I'm kind of missing. The second sleep tip is to limit exposure to screens before bed. I think
Oh
we've
boy.
all heard this one.
That's really hard to do, but
It
I know it is
is, I
important. The
know.
times where I am on like that TikTok like train at night and stuff, it's you kind of wake up from that TikTok coma. It's like an hour and a half later, like whoa.
Yeah, you're like, oh my God, what happened?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people have heard it before, but the blue lights that are emitted from our phones, our computers, tablets, TV screens, all that can actually impact the production of melatonin, which is a sleep hormone. Normally, when the light starts to go down with sunset, your body starts to naturally produce a little bit of that melatonin to help get you ready for bed. But when we're sitting in front of lights still, even though it's 9 p.m. and dark outside, our body doesn't recognize that it's time to start producing that, which is why a lot of people have started taking melatonin before bed, because we know how important it is for us to get that quality sleep with that hormone regulation. But if we're able to start and create that consistent sleep schedule, and maybe it includes limiting some more of your screens, then you'll naturally produce that.
Yeah, and I think that's always the thing. I've always been of the opinion that if it's something that your body can naturally produce,
Yeah.
you should try everything to get it to do that first.
Yeah.
It just feels like it's so easy to take shortcuts in everything in life, but when it comes to things like that, it just goes back to that whole aquarium analogy. I think it's just you don't want to mess with it unless you have to. There are instances where I'm sure that is their last resort, and you have to do it. Then that's obviously not what I'm talking about here. But this should not be like your first go-to. It's like
Yeah.
you have a headache, you grab a piece of food, drink some water before you pop the Advil sort of deal.
Yeah. I'm that kind of person too, and especially practicing as a dietitian, I always tell people I'm a foods first kind of person. So yes, there's a million supplements or protein powders or whatever that you could take to make sure you're getting what you need, but let's like take a look at your diet and make sure you're eating foods that have them first to really try and optimize like the longevity of how it's going to work for you, like the long-term solution instead of a short-term solution, because you can only take omega-3 for so long before maybe you need to start taking more and more.
Yeah, and then you get the pill, the thing with the like Monday, Tuesday,
The pill containers.
like you don't want to do that.
You don't want to take a million pills every day.
I don't want to be that.
Food is delicious. Eat the food first.
Not until you're like older.
And start becoming required.
Yeah.
You don't want to add to that like pill burden.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, and it's so hard enough. Like, having said this, I do take pills. We all know this for my anxiety, but this was like something that I unfortunately I'm not able to regulate myself, right?
And it's after we've tried a bunch of everything else too, right? Like we're both, I think, in a similar situation with that, where we tried journaling, meditation, different kinds of therapy. We tried putting our thoughts in boxes and seeing how things worked out.
That was great. But not enough.
But I'm saying it just, even with all those things you were trying, it just wasn't enough. And then that's when like a medication is indicated to help, right?
Yeah.
But tying into that, the third tip that we will highlight is watching what you're eating and drinking, avoiding heavy meals, too much caffeine, or a lot of alcohol right before bedtime, because these can all disrupt your sleep.
That makes sense.
I think it's a big myth that even with alcohol, your sleep might feel better because you're...
Yeah, hot toddy,
Just before bed? Toddy before bed.
Is that a myth?
Because you feel like, oh, I'm so tired, and you go to sleep and you feel like you had a great sleep, but
it's like
realistically your body isn't relaxing because it's trying to metabolize all the alcohol, and your body's still going crazy about this toxin that's in there.
That makes sense.
It's not being able to rest properly, and you end up having more disruptions through your night, so you're not really getting that quality sleep. Apart from that, limiting caffeine intake to the morning or the early afternoon. I think this is another one we've heard a lot, is not having caffeine after 2 p.m. And on our walk this morning with Luna, we were talking about this one because I think both of us didn't have a great night's sleep yesterday. And then when we thought about it, we were like, when we were driving home from the cottage at 3 p.m., we both had an energy drink. And then we went to your parents for dinner, and then we had coffee, like full caffeination. And then we came home, and right before bed we each had a cup of tea, but it was orange pico, so it's got caffeine in it. And I was like, no wonder we didn't sleep great. Might have had a little bit too much caffeine. Figure out what your limit is and
stay within it.
Nice. That's what they say. Other things to consider with eating and drinking, with sleep quality, is like how many liquids you're drinking before bed. If you're someone who has to get up to use the bathroom a lot in the middle of the night, Maybe you need to just limit fluids in general before you go to sleep so that you're not being disrupted all the time. Even sometimes, actually often, when I was working with athletes, I would recommend a bedtime snack for them. Usually something that was really good protein, good carbohydrate source, not something heavy in fat because that takes a lot more time to digest. But my reasoning with that was if you're getting your body some good source of carbohydrates and protein right before bed in a light snack, it can actually help your body build more muscle and recover more overnight. So I know sometimes people are like afraid of the bedtime snack, don't eat after 8 p.m. But again, your body is smarter than you think it is. It's not going to immediately put that into like your fat stores. It's going to use it how it needs to. And if you're someone who's consistently working out every day and you need that extra protein to build muscle, your body will use it for muscle if it's needed. The only time you're going to start storing fat is if you're eating in excess and you don't need all that extra energy, then it gets stored for you to perhaps use later. So, yeah, so sometimes a bedtime snack can be really good, especially if you're hungry right before bed.
Yeah.
I usually don't, like, personally, I hate going to bed hungry because I will wake up in the middle of the night starving. And then there's a sleep disruption and your sleep quality and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, so a few things to consider with that.
Yeah, and I think there's a few others I wanted to touch on, just like this idea of you want to control what you can to make the environment as conducive to a good night's sleep as possible. Trying to create, at least for me, this idea of very relaxing space, dark in some cases. I think the difficulty is like what we both consider to be relaxing and like optimal for a good night's sleep. Like for me, it's having some type of background noise, which is usually the TV. The light that emits, it affects you and it's not conducive to your kind of like ideal environment. And so I think one of the things I want to, and I have tried this before and it works really well, is sleep stories or an idea, or even if it's just like listening to what I would be listening to, but audio only instead of
having it on the TV.
So it doesn't affect you. I did get this
sleep mask with built-in Bluetooth.
Yeah. And so I'm going to try some of those. I've used them before. They're really good. And so I'm going to try to do that so that I can create that environment. But I also want to do things like do some more of the guided meditations before sleep just to get me kind of to end the day off. That's the toughest part I find is like the going to sleep. Once I'm asleep, I feel good. But it's the getting to sleep that is usually the struggle for me. That actually, as we've been talking about it, I've been trying to reflect of like where I feel like I need to get better, and it's the actual act of going to sleep.
And I think it's easy for us to, you talked about getting stuck into like the TikTok black hole, but I think it just as easily happens with watching TV, especially if there's a new show that came out and you're obsessed with it and you just one more episode, and then by the time you know it, it's 11 p.m. and you're like, oops, I was supposed to go to bed at 9.
Yeah.
So I think for both of us, and if you're in a relationship or you're living with someone, it's coming up with that pact or communicating with them that I want to make it like a hard stop. Like I want to stop watching TV by 9 p.m. and either read or do a meditation or just do something a little bit more relaxing to focus on getting to sleep and like having good quality sleep. And I think most of the time that we've had this conversation a few times over the years, and I think every time we're always like, oh yeah, me too. But you just think about it and you're like, oh, I don't know if the other person will be okay with it though. But they almost always are.
You kind of have to be, right? You can't, this is something that you can't necessarily let go. Like if you're not, if your environment isn't conducive to a good night's sleep.
And there's so many ways to find compromise nowadays too. There's so many little gadgets and like
I was just going to say that
you can find to help compromise. So like you've mentioned, you have your Bluetooth sleep mask, which can help you listen to a TV show without having the TV on. But at the same time, if we do have the TV on, I have just a regular sleep mask, which I'll put on so that the light doesn't bother me. Yeah. And we usually agree on like a volume that's like pretty low so that you can hear it just enough, but I don't hear it too much that it like a loud sound will wake me up.
Yeah.
So we also found compromise that way. And then I think even just with the temperature, we found a good compromise with that. You usually don't like to sleep without covers, whereas I might throw on an extra cover.
Yeah, people are going to think I'm weird when you say that.
I don't think so.
Yeah, every time I say this, people are like, "What is wrong with you?"
I don't wake up with some covers on. But
I don't sleep with covers, and people are like, "What?" Yeah, it's true. I don't know. It is weird. I'm not gonna lie,
Run
but
really hot though.
I
Like your
run real
body
hot.
temperature,
Yeah,
like really.
yeah. So no, maybe like a cover tucked in between my legs, but
Yeah.
that's as really as far as I go. Like one leg cover. That's it. And I think I run really hot, and I think one of the things that we had done was we got a fan in
Yes.
the room, which is really great. It's on a schedule, so it doesn't. It runs like it turns
Overnight.
off like because the problem was like those just regular
Mm.
fans, it was really hard for me to wake up because it was like an optimal like cool environment for me. Like if it's at all hot, I can't sleep. The only other I actually there was one other time where I almost had an
All nighter.
all nighter, but it was not on purpose. It was when we went to that camping trip, and it
Yes.
was so hot out at night that I was just sweating
We
at
yeah, we
night,
were sleeping in tents, but
and
like you couldn't sleep
I
because it was
couldn't sleep.
just so hot and humid.
I couldn't sleep. I even like in the middle of the night tried to like book like a cabin, but the cabin was basically like a sauna. I didn't
Yeah,
realize it was.
I know they didn't have air
Yeah, I was like,
conditioning.
so it was even worse. So I ended up just like trying to sleep in the car,
Yeah.
and it was just I think I remember doing like a cold shower, trying to then going to bed like cold, and maybe got
Hmm.
like 30 minutes of sleep. It was terrible. So for me, like that is a huge. It needs to be cool, and so having the fan on my side that like automatically turns off before I'm supposed to wake up is
Yes.
is ideal for me.
Yeah, because naturally your body will start to warm up. Your body temperature will start to increase a little bit right before you wake up.
Hmm.
I don't know if other people experience it too, but for me, if I wake up and I decide to lie in bed for a little bit and check my phone or whatever, I'll start getting like too hot. If
Hmm.
I'm under all my covers still and like all bundled up, I start to get really warm, and that's because your body naturally will increase your body temperature as you wake up to get you up and moving and get you out of bed. And I think that's something that we did for you because if you have the fan on all the time, your body just stays nice and cool.
Hmm.
But I think once the fan turns off now, and I think we programmed it to stop at 7 a.m. or something,
Hmm.
then your body can naturally start heating up, and then you'll wake up because you're starting to get like too hot.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, it was funny when we had the fan on without it auto turning
You would
off,
sleep
and I was
until like
sleeping until
9 o'clock
10,
sometimes, and I was like,
and I was
what?
like, "What is happening?" I'm
Like,
like, I don't like this.
we've been together now for 14 years. We had our
Yeah,
anniversary on Friday, and literally in my 14 years of knowing, you've always like been an early riser.
yeah,
You never sleep in, never
yeah.
have.
Those couple of
I
days, I was
started
like, "What
sleeping
is
and I was
going
like, "Are
on?"
you okay?"
And I hated it. I hated being like going to like waking up that late. It was like awful.
Yeah.
For me anyway. So yeah, like I think there's definitely things that we still need to work on. I don't think we've got like an ideal environment for
No.
sleep, but I think we're gonna
We're
try to
working
work
on
on
it.
it. Yeah, but I think it's constantly having those in communicating, having those conversations with your partner to make sure that they're getting what they need. So checking in is always important, and making adjustments as we go. There may be times where you're just having a really bad day and you need the TV on just to get rid of the
Calm your
scaries or
mind or
whatever.
whatever, yeah.
And obviously you take those as one-offs, but yeah, it's trying to find something that's mutually beneficial.
And like we've said this whole time too, with each of the tips that we've gone through, if it's not clear, both you and I are quite different in what we need in order to work. I think there's tons of tips out there, even if you just Google like how to improve sleep quality, it's gonna spit out like a whole bunch of things for you to do. But again, it doesn't mean that will work for you as an individual.
Hmm.
It's very general tips that are given. It's a trial and error. You got to find what's going to work best for you. So like you need the TV on, but I need darkness. Like you need really cold, and cold's nice, but
Yeah, but
I
I
need
mean,
to bundle up a little in order to fall asleep because I'll get too cold.
you need to go to bed early, and you are a very light sleeper. So,
Yes.
me not coming to bed at the same time that you go to bed would mean that I would potentially wake you up in the middle once you're asleep. And
Right.
for me, it's another thing that we're going to have to work on, especially with you being committed to going to bed early. It's like maybe I go to bed, I'll read.
Yeah.
And then that way I'll just I'll read. It'll be quiet. Maybe I'll put my headphones on when I'm ready to go to bed. But at that point, you'll be sound asleep and you won't wake up from me actually jumping into bed. So I don't
Yeah.
actually jump into bed when you're asleep.
Because
But
then I'd really wake up.
but yeah, no, and it's that element, and I think that's what makes sleep so complicated
Yeah.
to figure out and get that quality sleep is when you're in a partnership, right? Because you
Mhm.
don't have a lot of control, and there's a lot of external factors that sometimes you don't have control over, and it's also like very difficult to have these conversations openly with somebody and say I need this, and I'm going to need you to compromise in some way to
Right.
help me achieve this, because I
Like-
can't do it alone.
Yeah, maybe don't come at them like that and say, you need to compromise
You
'cause
need
I need this.
You
but
need to sort your shit out because I need my Z's. Okay, so I think in terms of final thoughts, I think the one thing that I would want to hit home is this idea that while sleep is important, it is one of, several important pieces that help people thrive. Sleep is just one of those pieces, those weapons
one
in your
pillar
arsenal, right?
in the
But
health
it's
foundation.
yeah, it's eating right, getting the regular exercise, being vigilant about managing your stress, and making sure you've got like good people around you,
Yeah, support system.
and just that, because then I think that leads into stress when you have people that are around that are
Everything ties
toxic.
into each other. It's a big circle, to be
Yeah,
honest.
it's just, I think for me, it's like if I'm regularly exercising, I'm eating right, I'm feeling good about how I'm managing my stress, journaling, meditation, what have you, and I'm actually sleeping well, that's everything for me. I think I'm in a really good spot, and it's things I have control over. So I think for me, it's being very vigilant on making sure that I don't make sacrifices in those areas.
Yeah, I agree. I think the two takeaways for me that I'm going to try moving forward is building that consistent schedule with a sleep routine and creating that relaxing nighttime routine. I read a book and a half over vacation. I wanted to read a full 2, but I was close.
That was wild. I barely got halfway through.
I know.
And by barely, I didn't get close to halfway through.
Like a third of the way through, maybe. It's not bad.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's a big book.
It's a big book.
Yeah, but still.
But I think moving forward, now that I don't have to worry about studying after work every day, I definitely want to focus on getting some reading time in. And I think the perfect time to do that would be right before bed for a good half an hour to give me like that dedicated time to read, because I love it. I love reading books. And I used to be someone who would read a couple books every month. And I think I've read 2 this year. So I want to get back on track with that. And yeah, I just want to improve my overall sleep quality too. So I think having a routine to get me to bed on time, having that hard stop on like screen time will hopefully help.
Yeah. And one other, I guess, tip that I forgot to mention is just communicate. Making sure that the environment is set up not just for you, but for your partner
Both of you.
is important. This is our check-in with each other. You are making it pretty clear. Like
This
you
is me telling you, I want to go to bed at 9 o'clock
And then-
and sleeping by 9:30.
Yeah, and I
Ideally.
think that's definitely something I can do. It's where I'll go to bed, read a book in the time where it takes for me to fall asleep, and we'll see how that goes. And if it doesn't work, we'll adjust it.
Yeah.
And
I
then
think it's a good plan.
and then measure it too. Like I think the apps that we talked about,
Yeah.
or the app that you talked about, what was it? Sleep.
Cycle. But I'm sure there's some free ones out there you can
Absolutely.
find too. Even like Apple Health, if you have an Apple Watch, if you
Yeah.
wear it overnight, it'll track sleep.
And I think for me, I've been really into Rooted, which is
Yeah.
an app that I've been talking about. It's for those it's for folks who suffer with anxiety primarily, but there are a lot of additional pieces that are in there that'll be really good for me trying to establish that routine at night. Things like sleep stories, meditations, guided meditations, and so on and so on, and journaling. So I'll be using that app to complete a lot of these activities, like these nighttime routine activities. And then this other app that I started using called Habit is exactly what it sounds like. It helps you establish a habit. So I'm going to create for all of these pieces that I'm going to do or commit to, like reading before bed, meditating, all this type of stuff. I'll creating habits and tracking those daily, just as a little gamification or something for myself to get myself to consistently do this.
Yeah.
And so that'll be what I'm committing to.
And I don't know, on a side note, I guess, if anyone's read the book Atomic Habits, it talks a lot about habit stacking. So with whatever your routine is right now, let's say at 8:30, you always make yourself a tea before bed. Okay, what other habit do you want to try and learn to incorporate and attach it to like that trigger of making tea? So maybe you're going to make tea and go read a book, and then that becomes your new habit. So stacking them on top of each other actually makes it easier for your brain to make those habits a routine. So just on a side note, that was a great book to read too if this is something you're interested in.
Actually, now that you mentioned that, there's another book that I read that's very similar in this respect. It's just this idea of, it's called Nudge.
Oh, yeah?
It's this idea of it's mainly like a change management type of book, which is why I read it. But there's so many applications to just like forming habits for yourself and changing behavior. That's essentially what it is. And the concept is you got to nudge yourself into making changes. Like, you
Make it
can't just
easy, yeah.
automatically do it. And one of the ways to do it is what they call creating like stickiness, or sorry, not stickiness, friction. A sludge. That's what the term was.
Sludge.
Yeah, it's trying to introduce sludge. So
That sounds gross.
yeah, it does. But it's trying to create friction in whatever you're doing. So if, for example, if you're trying to wake up on time and you find yourself to be somebody who clicks a snooze button all the time, what they would recommend is, and there's actually a device, I can't remember what it's called, but it's called like the tickety talk or something.
The one that runs away?
Yeah, so it's literally like a clock that's on wheels, and as soon as the alarm goes off, the wheels will start turning, and this alarm clock will fly across the room and just go all over the place, under the bed, all over. And so you actually have to actively get up and turn it off.
Right.
And so that's introducing like sludge in your ability to stay asleep, because you can't just like, hit the snooze
roll
button.
over again.
You got to get up and run. There's also, obviously, you don't have to be that aggressive at it. You can just put your alarm clock away from your bed and just walk to it to turn it off. But the act of running around is probably going to keep you awake.
Although I would argue that I don't think that would work for you because you're such a heavy sleeper. Like this morning, you had gotten up way early and gone to the couch, I think, to watch some TV and kind of fall asleep again for a couple hours. But you left your phone at the bedside. Your alarm went off at 8 a.m. And I remember waking up to it and then lying there for a couple of minutes, and you literally didn't wake up. And so then I had to roll over to the other side, get your alarm, unplug it, and I brought it to you outside so that your alarm could like snooze and then wake you up again. And I think because I came out, you woke up, and I was like, oh, your alarm went off, by the way. But
it's all about experimentation.
In the other room doesn't work for you.
Yeah, you gotta pick something that's gonna work. But I think the idea of like just trying to introduce some element that's gonna make it more appealing to you to stick with these habits. For me, just the simple of checking off the box every day to say that I did it, and seeing that 2-day, 3-day, 4-day, 5-day streak, and knowing that if I don't do it, I'm going to lose that streak, is enough for me sometimes to do it. So you got to find what works for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, sleep cycle, rooted, habit. These are some of the apps that we'll be using. And take a look around. There might be some apps that are out there, some devices that are introduce some sludge into your routine to help make this a little bit easier for you to do.
And if you already have apps or books that you would recommend too, let us know.
Love to hear it.
We'll share it with the rest of everyone on social media and everything, because I think helping each other is the best way to find what's going to work for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
Awesome.
Thank you all so much for listening today. I think it's about time to wrap up, but mentioned if you have questions or comments, reach out to us on social media. We would love to hear from you. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Reroute Reflections, or on X at Reroute Podcast. We also have a website, so you can find us there at reroutereflections.com. And if you haven't already, please subscribe via whatever platform you're listening to, and share the podcast with a friend.
Thanks for joining, everybody. It was great catching up with you, and we'll talk to you all next week.
And remember, don't be afraid to reroute.
Nice.
Bye.
Bye.